Hello, good morning, and thanks to all of you for joining us in the SAWYER project final conference. My name is Massimiliano Rumignani, and together with Joaquin Solana and Julio Rodrigo, we formed the SANFIM team that led the implementation of the SAWYER project, which was implemented indeed with the collaboration of three other partners, the European Federation of Building and Woodworkers, then EFIC, the European Furniture Industry Federation, and Federlegno, the Italian Association of Wood and Furniture Companies. We are very glad to organize this event that indeed have created quite a lot of expectation within the sector stakeholders. And indeed, this is confirmed by the high number of registration received and a request of information as well. Today, we are going to present the work done and then results achieved by project partners and external experts involved in all the different project phases. Indeed, we want to thank all these experts and professionals that contributed directly or indirectly, depending on their task, to our achievements in the project. I just wanted to remember as well that on YouTube, you can write comments or questions on the chat that you can see on the right of the channel. In order to write there, to comment there, you need to be registered. So if you are not allowed, please just register with the Gmail or other account, and then you will be allowed to comment on that. We will have a short section in the second part of the conference when our experts will comment on these comments, remarks, or questions. Okay, now I would like to give the floor to Joaquin Solana, SANFIM Director, for today's welcome. Thank you, Joaquin. Please, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Max, for opening the conference. And thanks a lot to all the attendees and the speakers who join us today. We hope the program that we have prepared for this conference will be interesting for you. Well, we have all heard about the great challenge and the big opportunity that digitization of industry represents for European society, its companies and workers. On the other hand, we have heard also the need of industry to search for greener processes and products according to the Sustainable Development Goals. So we are talking about a simultaneous green and digital transition, what is known as twin transition. SAWYER is in synthesis a foresight project that analyzes how this twin transition will change 11 key occupational profiles of the furniture industry in the medium-term future. The results include a complete description of the foreseen changes in the task to be done by these 11 profiles, and from that, their new skills need and an occupational health and safety analysis. Attendees today will have the opportunity to see in this conference and also in the final project report, that is quite really good, how the results will be delivered by the project are extremely detailed and inspiring. Well, this is not the final step, but a cornerstone from which to develop the necessary training for workers. Project results will give companies, unions, and training entities from occupational training to higher education a base on which to prepare workers and students in this new skills need. So I encourage all attendees to contribute to these next developments and to help social dialogue members in this huge work. Finally, let me recognize the contribution for a lot of people who worked in this project. Thanks to the 60 experts who participated in working groups. Their opinions have been the raw material on which this project has been erected. And special remark for the experts Jereen Dom, Ellen Schmidt-Felton, and Juan Carlos Alonso. Well, SANFIM Cluster was just the leading partner of a 5-member consortium for SAWYER project development. And we have from the company side partners like the European Furniture Industries Council, the Union Européenne de l'Ameublement, Federlegno, and from the worker side, the European Federation of Building Adult Workers. Believe me, with partners like this, it's easy to get good results in projects. Thanks also to the European Commission for their support through the Social Dialogue Programme. We think that this is the right framework to develop projects like SAWYER, providing useful results to the European furniture companies and workers. Finally, a recognition to my colleagues at the team, Julio Rodrigo and Maximiliano Rumignani, for their extraordinary involvement and professionalism, and also for the thousands of hours they worked in the project. Well, that's all. I turn the floor over to Maximiliano Rumignani.
Thanks, Joaquin, for your welcome speech and a nice word. Now, I'm very glad to give the floor to Danny Schierling, our EU Commission officer and responsible to guiding the European Social Dialogue Committee on furniture. Indeed, I use this opportunity to thank him for supporting us along the whole project in implementation. Thanks, Danny. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Massimiliano. Thank you for the introduction. And of course, you are very welcome for the support we have given to this SAWYER project. First, maybe let me introduce myself, or rather the service I'm working for. I'm working for the Social Dialogue Unit, which is in DG Employment of the European Commission. What we do is we provide administrative support to sectoral and cross-industry social partners in the organization of their social dialogues. So sectoral social dialogue, the furniture industry is a perfect example of that. So they focus on what is happening in one sector particularly. So we have in the sectoral social dialogue, we have 43 committees, and furniture is one of them. We also provide financial support to projects that deal or focus on social dialogue and industrial relations. And that is exactly what we have done with this project, or what we are still doing, because it's not over yet. With the SAWYER project, we have provided co-funding. This is based on on 3 calls for proposals which we organize. One for social dialogue at large, one which is particularly focused on trade unions, and then a 3rd call for proposals is focused on research projects, and more in particular to do research in the area of industrial relations. So we also provide support to 2 trade union institutes, that ETUI and ESA. We have an intense cooperation with ILO, the International Labour Organization. And in addition, we have close ties with Eurofound, the European Foundation for Living and Working Conditions, based in Dublin. And Eurofound is also providing assistance to us in checking the representativeness of social partners. So that is checking who is exactly entitled to take part in European social dialogue. So what is exactly European social dialogue then? Well, it is part of what we call acquis communautaire. It is part of the treaty. It is enshrined in the Treaty for Functioning of the European Union. More in particular, I'm not going to bother you with articles, but we have Article 154 and 155, which deal with consultation of social partners. So they describe the cases in which the European Commission and the conditions under which the European Commission should take part, or should take account rather, of the opinion of social partners. These articles also set the conditions for negotiations between social partners. And then we also have Article 152, which describes the recognition which we should pay to social partners, and as well the promotion of social dialogue, which is actually a task for the Commission. So actually social dialogue has become one of the values of the European Union. In that social dialogue, as said, the furniture sector has one committee, the Furniture Sectoral Social Dialogue Committee, and there we have different social partners at EU level and also at national level which gather to discuss issues of common interest and mainly working conditions. So, I mean, at EU level, the social partners have already been mentioned. We have EFIC, we have UEA. We're at the employer side, sorry, and at worker side, we have the European Federation of Building and Woodworkers. The Furniture Committee is an active committee. It has two working groups, one on vocational education and training, or education at large. A second working group deals with what we call OSH, occupational safety and health. So actually the SAWYER project is relevant to the two working groups because these two components are an element of the SAWYER project. Sorry. So recently the working group for vocational education and training has shown an interest for the Pact for Skills, which has recently been published by the European Union. And in the OSH working group, the social partners are discussing their reaction on the upcoming revision of the occupational safety and health framework, which will be reviewed. So you see, they are really focusing on what is happening at EU level. There have been a number of important outputs from this committee. Well, the most topical one in this context is, of course, the joint opinion on the digital transformation of workplaces, which was signed in July of last year, and which was in fact a follow-up of the DigitFur project. So that you see that these kind of projects also produce joint opinions which are highly valued in the EU social dialogue context, because the European social dialogue is very much output based. So social partners are really, let's say, assessed on what they produce in terms of policy documents at EU level. There have been other important outputs, like, for instance, the joint declaration on the impact of the COVID crisis, which was signed in April of last year. And we have a Bolster Up project, which is also something which was done in collaboration with another social dialogue committee, the Woodworking Committee, and which was also dealing with qualifications, so also in the educational context. So now about SAWYER. Well, there could not be a better time to produce or to publish the results of this project, because we have recently, because since the start rather of the project, the Green Deal has been adopted, and also the Circular Economy Action Plan, which was adopted in 2020. In the Circular Economy Action Plan, of course, one of the value chains which has it under attention is the furniture sector, the furniture value chain. Also, let's not forget that the COVID crisis has meant or has produced an enormous leap in terms of digitalization and the related skills. And it has also drawn the attention to certain aspects of occupational safety and health. So that is again, those are again two elements which prove the importance of the SAWYER project. So we have we have seen that challenges like digitalization and OSH and greening of the economy are challenges for employers and workers. And social dialogue is indeed the perfect tool to address these challenges, to find solutions, and active in terms of addressing the challenges which they have in front of them. Finally, I would like to draw your attention to a recent initiative of the European Commission, and that is the adoption of the action plan for the implementation of the social pillar. The social pillar, I will try to be very brief and say what it is about. It is a framework for upward convergence, as it is called, and it contains 20 principles. Almost in all of those 20 principles, the involvement of the social partners is mentioned very clearly. And actually one of the 20 principles itself is social dialogue as such. So the social pillar was actually endorsed during the Göteborg summit in November 2017, and already then it was decided that there should be an action plan for the implementation and for the involvement of social partners in the implementation thereof. So that is now what has happened. There also the need for such a plan was expressed by our president, Mrs. von der Leyen. The action plan was adopted very recently, a week ago, on the 3rd of March, and we hope that it will provide an important input for the upcoming summit in Porto, which will take place on the 4th of May of this year. The main elements of that action plan are indeed the digitalized economy, or the transition towards such an economy, and the challenges it will create. Also, the green economy, the greening of the economy, the transition to a green economy is one of the elements in that action plan. And so once again, there we have already a strong link with the SAWYER project. But there are other elements like skills. Upskilling, reskilling will be very much in the picture in the implementation of the social pillar, as well as the role of social partners. And if we take those 4 elements together, so the digitalized economy, the green economy, skills, and the role of social partners, I think that we are actually we have 4 elements which are strongly represented in the SAWYER project. And so it means that the SAWYER project is, in my view, a very good tool to address these elements in the furniture sector, in the discussions which will be held in the furniture committee. So I hope that this project can trigger very interesting discussions in that furniture committee. And that is, I would like to conclude with these words. So I hope that this will be a valuable onset for discussions in the committee. And I'm looking forward to learn more about the details of the project, details on the methodology and on the results which have been produced by SAWYER. So I thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Danny, for your intervention. And I would like to, is it working? Yes, sorry. For your intervention and for your good inputs about the new initiatives. Indeed, we hope as well that the results of the SAWYER project can provide good inputs for the next activities of the committee or other partners or European initiative. And thanks also for presenting the role of the Social Dialogue Committee, because I think that sometimes is not so clear to the different partners. Now, I would like to give the floor to Chiara Terraneo from Federlegno Arredo, one of the partners of the SAWYER project, as I mentioned before. But I take also the opportunity to thank her and the whole Federlegno team, that in addition to Chiara is composed by Nicola Sangali and Omar Degoli, for the inputs given along the project implementation. Now Chiara is going to present us the following part of the agenda. Thanks, Chiara, please.
Yes, thank you, Max. Thank you for your presentation. I go quickly through the agenda. After this short presentation...
Chiara, we cannot hear you at all.
Why?
Sorry.
Okay, I think yes. So after this short presentation, we will give the floor to Maurizio Melis, an Italian science and innovation communicator, for his keynote speech, The Twin Transition. After that, Julio Rodrigo from Senfim for a double speech. The first one is the update about the Sustainable Product Policy Initiative and its effects on the furniture sector. And the second one, it will show us the SAWYER methodology in brief. So we will have a short and virtual coffee break. And then we will continue with the second part of this conference, and we will give the floor to our experts. 3 experts. The first one, Juan Carlos Alonso, circular economy expert, for his speech about the general vision on how the twin transition will affect the furniture sector jobs. After Juan Carlos Alonso, Ellen Schmitz-Felten, occupational health and safety expert, with her speech forecasted OHS risks of change in furniture occupational profiles. Jérôme Dawn, vet and sector expert, with his speech new knowledge, skills and competencies needs. And then back to Massimiliano Rumignani from Senfim, recommendation for legislator, companies, vet regulators and providers. And then a SAWYER technical team will comment the participant remarks and question following the indication that Massimiliano showed us at the beginning of the conference. So keep with us till the last part of the conference with Gabriella Kemendi from EFIC, the European Association of Furniture Industry, Rolf Gehring, EFBWV, and Massimiliano Rumignani from Senfim from a virtual debate and voting. Key challenges ahead of furniture sector twin transition. And then Julio Rodrigo from Senfim will close the conference with the lesson learned.
Okay, thank you, Chiara. And as Chiara has just mentioned, now we are going to present you the keynote speech by Maurizio Melis, that is going to present us his views about the twin transition. This video is going to last more or less 25 minutes, and we will reconnect, let's say, and talk about the conference after the video. Okay, thank you.
Hi to everybody, thank you for inviting me and to give me the opportunity to think about this new concept, the twin transition. The first question that I made myself about twin transition is, what is twin transition? Is actually just a way to say that we must do two transitions at the same time, the digital transition and the green transition, or it means that actually green transition and digital transition are deeply connected. I think that the right answer is the second. And my idea is that the reason can be resumed in this, let me say, slogan. The key for sustainability is cooperative economy. The key for a cooperative economy is the digitalization. Maybe you heard about competition. It's a kind of blend, as you can understand, between cooperation and competition. What is important by my point of view is that we know very well competition, and so I want to focus on the cooperation. And I want to start from an example. Here you can see the result of a project that was made by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology some years ago. The name of the project is HubCab, as you can read. And here you see the map of New York. You can recognize on the left top the Manhattan Island. And you see all those blue and yellow dots. What do they represent? They represent a taxi that pick up a customer and a taxi that drop off a customer. That project was made in collaboration with the taxi driver of New York. And starting from that data, they could build maps like this, for example. And you can find those maps on the internet. You can also try. For example, you can choose 2 points on the map, and then you have this kind of information. So how many people, for example, went from the position A, the yellow position, to the blue position, and how many people went the same day from the blue position to the yellow position. The numbers are impressive. Of course, we are in Manhattan. Probably it's not the same if you go in the rural area. But what is impressive is that clearly you can share the rides of the taxi, because with this number, probably when you are going from the yellow to the blue point, there is someone that 10 seconds after is going to make exactly the same path. So from that data, what the conclusion of the study is that if the customer accepts to share the ride, the taxi driver could bring everybody to their destination, every customer to their destination, with no more than 3 minutes delayed, with 40% less rides, and so saved 40% of rides. This is very interesting if we think to the taxi, but it's more interesting if we think what we can do if we could share private cars, because private cars just are used in the average for 5% of their lifetime and spend 95% of their lifetime in a parking. Another interesting number is this: 83% that is the public space in cities that is dedicated to cars. That means that for humans is the rest, is the 17%. And this is quite foolish. Not just because the cities are full of cars everywhere, but because it means that the very precious resource, like a car, that contains a lot of energy, that traps a lot of energy, that trap a lot of materials, to trap a lot of intelligence and innovation, it is just not used for 95% of time. What I said explain how it works very good, the car sharing. In cities like Milan or Rome, in the dense city, there are this model of car sharing, which is the pick and go, where with your smartphone you can easily find a free car in few hundreds meters. You can open the car with a smartphone, drive it to the destination, and then leave in any parking the car for someone else. According to what I said, this model, it works today quite good in the big and dense city, because with a restricted number of vehicles you can serve a lot of customers. What happened when all the cars are taxi? And this is something that is going to happen, because with the self-driving car, all cars will be taxi. So in this case, we will be able to move all the people to their destination with the famous 3 minutes of delay, probably with 1/3, 1/4, 1/5 of the cars that we have today. And it's clear, so that sharing car would be good for the environment, less gray energy trapped into the car. It's going to be good for the cities, because we need less parking, and we can take back some space for us, for human beings. And it's good for the customer's pocket, because if they share the ride or they share a car, for example, they can save a lot of money, and more, you can have the vehicle that you actually need, because if the car, after you use it, go and serve it to someone else, you can choose the car. Sometimes you move alone and then you need a one-place car. Sometimes you go with the family to the mountains and then you need a SUV, and you get both when you need it. So it's clear that there are enormous diseconomy lying under our eyes. We just can't see them because we are used to see them. And it's clear that sharing asset is a big opportunity to save resources. This is a very important part of the twin transition and is matter for the next chapter. Let's talk about sharing economy. Here you can see the big brands of sharing economy. You can recognize Zipcar, Airbnb, Uber, and so on. What do these brands made? Actually is to solve the same problem in different sectors. Usually in the traditional economy, we were used to response with a centralized response to pulverize needs. Let me make an example. There are thousands of people looking for a chamber to spend the night, and the answer is centralized, is the hotel. Now what we can do with Airbnb is to match this request of chamber with a pulverized resource, which is represented by thousands of chambers that are free in thousands of apartments. Of course, is really complex to match the pulverized need with the pulverized response. The question is why we didn't make it before? Why we didn't share before? Actually, we could share, but sharing couldn't be an economy. To share something, we need trust or we need bureaucracy, because you can borrow your car to your friends or to your brother, but if you want to rent your car to someone that you don't know, you need bureaucracy, you need assurance, you need to sign a contract, you need to pay, to register the payment, and so on. And we can do it now very quickly with digitalization. That is actually the key to transform sharing in something valuable, in something that can be an economy. And the car sharing, the example of car sharing that I made before is just, it's probably one of the best examples we can do. Now, I think it's quite interesting to observe that in some way, we can say that Industry 4.0 is a kind of sharing economy. Let me explain. How is represented Industry 4.0? We sometimes represent it focusing on the manufacturing technologies like 3D printing or robots in the plant and so on. Another way we represent Industry 4.0 focus on the Internet of Things, and so on the possibility to collect big data, to collect data about how things works, and if there could be a problem. For example, this is the predictive maintenance, the idea that we can predict a problem before it happens and solve the problem before it happens, comes out from this representation of the Industry 4.0. There are many ways. This is another representation of Industry 4.0. So what is Industry 4.0? I found a very interesting case some years ago in an expo that was dedicated to the people who works in the field of the services to the automotive sector. So, for example, garage, the people who works in the garages, the mechanical, in other words. And they asked themselves, what is Industry 4.0 for us, for the people who repair cars? And they found a very interesting answer. Think to what happens usually today. If you have a problem, you go to the mechanic, then the mechanic look at the car, find the problem, and then tells you usually something like, okay, we need to change a piece. We must wait for the spare parts for 3 days, and then the 4th day I can give you back your car. Now, try to imagine what we can do today. We have a car, it is full of sensors. The sensor can perceive some premonitory signal that something is going to break. And from the analysis of this data, you can understand which piece is going to break. Then we have a message that starts from the cars and go to all the supply chain that is involved with the maintenance of the car. So the producer who produced the spare parts, the store that has the spare parts in his belly, and your trusted mechanics. So you receive an SMS or a message where they tells you your car has a small problem. If you come in 3 days, the spare part is there for you. We can give you back your car in just 1 hour. This is Industry 4.0 for a mechanic. I think it's very interesting because after all, the mechanic do the same job than before. It continued to change a piece that is broken, but the service for the customer is completely different. So what is Industry 4.0? This is my idea of Industry 4.0, is services that descend through the supply chain and data that climbs the supply chain. That means that all the pieces of the value chain must be connected. It is impossible to make Industry 4.0 alone, because Industry 4.0 is based on the sharing of knowledge. So this is why I tell you that Industry 4.0 is a case of sharing economy, because it is a model of industry where we share knowledge, where we share information and standards. So no one can make Industry 4.0 alone. You can make a smart plant, you can make a smart product, you can substitute all the workers with robots, but you are not doing Industry 4.0. You are doing something different. Because as in the example that we made before for the mechanic, if all the rings of the supply chain are not connected, the services, the new service that I mentioned before, is simply impossible. And now, twin transition and circular economy. Usually we have a very simplified idea of what is a circular economy. Actually, this representation of circular economy, it's valid maybe for some material, for example, for aluminum or for iron, but usually you cannot really reuse the same material infinite times. A more correct representation of a circular economy can be this one that you can see, where you see that it's not circle, there are, you know, different paths for the different materials and so on. Probably a better representation is that one, and here we can understand that circular economy is not a circle, it's a very complex diagram of flux of materials through different industries, through different environment, natural environment, industrial environment, and so on. So after all, I think that the transition to a circular economy is not so different than the transition to a sharing economy. Because actually what is the challenge is transforming thousands of different wastes in thousands of new resources. That means to solve a match problem between who produce the wastes and who can use these wastes. And sometimes it is a matter of finding new processes that allow a waste to become a new material or a prime material for another industry. So Closing the circle of materials is about managing complexity. Same problem as I told you of sharing economy, because there are new instruments that are coming and that could be very useful to implement the circular economy. The first is blockchain. As you probably know, blockchain is a distributed register of transaction, is a database that is managed by a community of people or of companies and so on. And no one possesses the database in an exclusive way. I think that blockchain is a kind of a shared algorithm for a sharing economy, because in a sharing economy we can share resources, and then we don't want to centralize the data. We want also the data to be distributed and to be owned by the collectivity. Blockchain will allow to trace almost anything and to exchange data between the rings that I mentioned before of the supply chain. Another very interesting technology that is coming is the 6G. Today we are all speaking about the 5G because we are now building the 5G infrastructure, but the scientists are studying the 6G, which will be the next infrastructure that will be completely different by the 5G. I don't want to enter into the details, but what you must understand is the 6G is going to allow us really to monitor big, large geographical area, and that include rural area and forest, which are very interesting by the point of view of the world of furniture. So that means that in the future, thanks to technologies like 6G and blockchain, we will be really able to trace everything, and this is fundamental for circular economy. So what's the conclusion of this first reasoning? I think that we can conclude that transition to sharing economy actually is a twin transition, because you cannot separate the environmental effect from the digital effect. You can't do this transition, which is important to the environment, without doing the transition on the digital side. Transition to circular economy is a twin transition, because again, you cannot separate the two. You cannot make a real transition to circularity without make the transition, the digital transition. And finally, the transition to Industry 4.0, which is very important also in the framework of European Union, is a kind of twin transition. The mechanisms are almost the same of the sharing economy and the circular economy, but as we know, the transition to Industry 4.0 has no necessarily an environmental impact. What is more important is that no transition, no one of those transitions can be made by its own. To conclude the reasoning, I want to make an example. I hope it's going to be a stimulating example of how this twin transition can impact the building renovation, and how the world of furniture can be a central, can be a pivot of this operation. Now, let me show you an example, a very interesting project that was made in Holland. They've made thousands of renovation with this process that I'm going to describe. How it works. They go with drones or other technology to take very, very precise measure of the building that must be renovated. Then, starting from that data, they make a project and they build in a plant this kind of big panel that you can see in the picture. Those big panels, they contain windows, doors, as you can see, but they also contain the new water system, electrical system, in the side of the panel that goes against the wall. So they move those panels from the plant where they have been built to the home, and just in 1 week they completely renovate the buildings. They can require 10 days if you must change also inside, for example, if you must make a new bath. This is very interesting because it allows to lower the price of refurbishment. Actually, today, if you go outside the center of the city, you'll easily find that the price of renovating the building is almost the same of the building, or sometimes is also higher. And that is the reason for which we had not so many renovation in the past. They simply cost too much. So that's the idea in Energy Sprong, is going from a handmade approach to an industrial approach to lower the cost of renovation. Here you can see that the new systems are produced in a plant, assembled, and then they go and place it where they must go. Here you can see other images of this process. Here you can see a part of a roof, and here you can see the final result. Those are other examples of the same approach in different fields. There are, for example, there are premises that are specialized in producing this kind of modular bath that are ready to be installed in a home. But this is another example of a project that was made close to Turin, Casa Zera, where they populate old buildings with these building modules that are inserted in the skeleton of the old building to renovate very quickly this kind of spaces. Why I tell you this story? Because this approach is really new for the building world, but it's exactly what you do in your job every day. Because when you must, I don't know, make a kitchen or a wardrobe or anything else, windows and so on, you're used to go, take precise measure, then to build a customized version, for example, of a kitchen, starting from standard modules, then you go to the customer and then you assemble the kitchen. So actually, as industry, the furniture industry and the wood industry in general, which is already involved in the construction industry, is more ready for this kind of approach than the building industry today. So we can conclude that the furniture industry has a real opportunity to extend his domain in the building renovation under the light of the twin transition. Thank you for the attention and good luck for your work.
Thanks to Maurizio Melis for his inspiring and stimulating speech. Well, it's pretty clear that we can expect a strong impact of this twin transition, not only for the different industrial sector, but indeed also in our daily life. We will see what will happen in the future. And now I'm very happy to give the floor to Julio Rodrigo, Director of the Senfin Innovation Department, and who is going to give an update about the sustainable product initiatives, and as well an overview about its possible effects on the EU furniture sector during the next years. I think we will see that the impact could be really strong. After that, he will also present the methodology adopted for the project, for the SAWYER project implementation, and show a short video with some details about this methodology. So thanks, Julio. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Max. Good morning, everyone. Well, the purpose of my presentation is to introduce you what the Sustainable Product Initiative is. This new legislative initiative of the European Commission that is still under development, and I'm also going to try to anticipate its possible effects on the furniture sector. Before commenting on this initiative, I would like to give an overview of the complete legislative context in which this initiative is framed, as well as briefly comment on other legislative initiatives interrelated with this Sustainable Products Initiative, which will also have an impact on the European industry and in the furniture sector. During my presentation, we will see that the European Commission is fully committed to motivate, or in other words, to force the European industry in this transition. The new European Commission has set 6 priorities for the next years, one of them being the Green European Deal. The Green Deal aims to make Europe the first climate-neutral continent and make us a modern and resource-efficient economy. The European Commission, or in other words, the Green Deal is a plan to make the European economy sustainable. More than a plan, I would say that it is the Green Deal a great plan in terms of ambition, in dimension, and in affecting the economy at the European and the world society. As you can see in the slide, the Green Deal was published at the end of 2019, and as can be seen in the figure, it is made up of different areas of action. Among them, the one that we believe will have the biggest impact on the furniture industry is mobilizing industry for a clean and circular economy. The Green Deal dedicates 2.5 pages to describe what kind of actions are going to be carried out under mobilizing industry for a clean and circular economy. If we do a quick analysis of its content, we can see that this section refers to climate neutrality and circular economy, job creation, adoption of a new European industrial strategy and a new circular economy action plan, deployment of a sustainable product policy, encourage reusability, durability and reparability of products, truthful and transparent communications, waste reduction and digitalization. And yes, it's true, the Green Deal doesn't make any explicit mention to the furniture sector. Also, we can consider our sector affected when the Green Deal talks about the industry in general. Yes, it's also clear and it's also true that the level of detail of the actions in the Green Deal is, let me say, scarce, and there is no calendar. But yes, there is a calendar behind the Green Deal. In this slide, we can see the Green Deal timeline. As we have already commented, the Green Deal was published in December 2019, and since then, a series of actions and milestones have taken place. What happened in March 2020 was very remarkable, although logically it was totally overshadowed by the pandemic. But as we can see in the slide, on March 10th, the new industrial strategy for a globally competitive, green and digital Europe was published. In this document also already makes an explicit mention that our industrial development has to be based on the twin transition. A day after, on March 11, the new Circular Economy Action Plan was published. An action plan focused on the circular transition of our economy and society, and which we'll analyze in more detail in a few moments. The Green Deal has continued with its deployment. As you can see in the slide, very recently, another initiative that will have an impact on the furniture sector has been also published. It is the new European Bauhaus, which aims to connect the European Green Deal with our living spaces. Without any doubt, this is another initiative to which we'll have to be attentive. Coming back to our Circular Economy Action Plan, in this slide, we can see its tables of contents. In today's session, we are going to focus on Chapter 2, related to a sustainable product policy framework. Since it is the action line that we will have the biggest impact on the furniture sector and on the products manufactured by our companies. It is under this action line that the Sustainable Products Initiative is framed. But first, I would like to comment on some aspects of Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 of the Circular Economy Action Plan. In the case of Chapter 3, this section mentions the key product value chains, or in other words, the priority sectors for the Circular Economy Action Plan. As can be seen in the slide, the priority sectors are electronics and ICT, batteries and vehicles, packaging, plastics, textiles, construction and buildings, and food, water, and nutrients. And again, yes, it's true, the furniture sector is not among them. And what does this mean? Well, it means that it is not among the high priorities of the Circular Economy Action Plan. But we should keep in mind that our sector is affected by the plan in its transversal actions. And as we will see in Chapter 2, the furniture sector is a priority for the plan in certain or specific actions. The table on the right shows the legislative initiatives that the European Commission plans to carry out in the field of key product value chains. Most of them are not obviously directed and applicable to the furniture sector, although some more transversal, such as packaging or textiles, might have effects on our sector. In the case of Chapter 4 of the Circular Economy Action Plan regarding less waste, more value, the furniture sector is not among the priorities of the plan, but we will be directly affected by legislative initiatives related to waste prevention, separate collection and labeling, tracking of hazardous substances, information systems, end of waste, and by-product criteria and waste shipments. As we have already commented, Chapter 2 of the Circular Economy Action Plan is the one that will have a more direct impact on the activity and products of the furniture sector. If we focus on its section 2.1, Design and Sustainable Products, it focuses on the product, on the design of the product. Since we know the 80% of the impact of a product is determined during its design and development phase. And as you can see, in this case, our sector is among the 5 explicit priorities of the Circular Economy Action Plan. If we analyze with more detail the content of this Chapter 2.1, Design and Sustainable Products, we will see that it consists of 2 main action plans. The first one is where the Commission plans to broaden the scope of the Eco-Design Directive and to include inside the plan the plan's priorities, such as the furniture, under this umbrella of the Eco-Design Directive. And as you know, the Eco-Design Directive obliges certain product groups to meet certain eco-design requirements. in order to be marketed in the European Union. This directive to date affects a limited number of products, normally closely linked to energy, for example, TVs, washing machines, lighting system, or vacuum cleaners. And what is wanted is to expand the scope of this directive in order to include furniture products and obviously other categories of products to which will be set eco-design requirements that must be met before placing the product on the European market. Expanding the scope of the eco-design directive is not only the action that the European Commission foresees in this section of designing sustainable products. The European Commission also foresees the development of additional legislative measures in relation to durability and reusability, hazardous chemicals, recycled content in products, high-quality recycling materials, product fruitbearings, premature obsolescence, destruction of unsold durable products, servitization, including the extension of producer responsibility, communication, and etc. All these aspects will be regulated within the framework of the legislative proposal for a sustainable product policy initiative, and on which we will give some additional details. But also in addition, as can be seen in this table, under the other sections, the sections 2.2 and 2.3, a series of legislative measures very interrelated with the Sustainable Product Initiative are also being developed in parallel. They will also have a significant impact on our sector, such as the legislative initiatives related to empowering consumers, right to repair, green claims, or mandatory GPP criteria and targets. Focusing again on the Sustainable Product Initiative, its state of development is as follows. As can be seen on the right side of the slide, a draft of this new legislation is expected to appear during this first quarter of the year 2021, which then will be submitted to public consultation. The Commission expects finally its adoption not before the end of this year. If we talk about what do we know about this draft, well, to be honest, we don't know much about it. We know that the Commission will publish this draft shortly, although some delay is also expected, and we know that for the preparation of this draft, the Commission is considering the content of the inception impact assessment. Or in other words, the Commission's plans in relation to legislative proposal for a sustainable product initiative that they will make public for collecting citizens, stakeholders, and feedback. This step of the feedback collection period finished in November of last year. And now the Commission is working on that draft that will be submitted to public consultation shortly. The Commission initial plan in relation to this legislative proposal for a Sustainable Products Initiative includes the following actions, which will be obviously adjusted in the final draft pending of publication. And in particular, it will include widening the scope of the Eco-Design Directive to cover a wide range of products, for example, furniture. And in addition, the following additional measures will be considered horizontally and specifically addressed to some vertical, to some particular sectors. So, in summary, establishing overarching product sustainability principles, for example, more durable and reparable products, increasing circular material use rate, reducing waste and achieving higher recycling rates. In the case of European rules to make producers responsible for providing more circular products, for example, providing products as a service, providing repair service, or ensuring spare parts availability. It also considers European rules for setting requirements on mandatory sustainability labeling and disclosure of information to different market actors, for example, in the form of a digital product passport, and European rules for setting mandatory minimum sustainability requirements on public procurement of products. And it also considers requirements to address social aspects. For me, this is the most difficult clause or consideration to guess how are they going, the European Commission is going to deploy to consider in this draft, but is also mentioned in the initial plan. And also this draft will consider measures on product processes, for example, to facilitate recycled content or remanufacturing and to track the use of hazardous substances in such processes. And finally, it also really foresees that this draft will include measures to ban the destruction of unsold durable goods. Well, as we commented, the work is ongoing, and we have just to wait and see how all these actions are going to take shape in the draft pending of publication. So, in conclusion, as we have seen, the European Green Deal is, and its instruments will force the twin transition of the furniture sector. We also can conclude that the Sustainable Products Initiative will have a huge impact on the sector. It will force us to eco-design, to communicate more and better, and we also extend manufacturers' responsibility and will affect our production processes. And also, we have to consider, for me, it is also a key conclusion, this initiative is not an isolated instrument. It is closely interrelated with other ongoing measures like empowering consumers, right to repair, green claims, mandatory GPP criteria and targets, etc. Okay, well, this is all I wanted to explain about legislation, and if you agree, we can move on to the next topic of the agenda, that is the methodology that we have followed in the SAWYER project. So let me share this slide. So regarding the SAWYER methodology, as we have already mentioned in the SAWYER project, we have analyzed how this twin transition is going to change jobs of the furniture manufacturing sector by 2030. Being more precise, in this project, we have explored how this transition can affect the existing jobs and their tasks, workers' health and safety risks, and their training needs. And yes, it was a complex problem and at the same time a difficult problem, since it was about forecasting the future in terms of changes in the tasks performed by the different occupations, changes in their occupational health and safety risks, and in their new skills needs. And how we have been able to do it? The answer is clear and simple. The answer is collaborating. This has been a clear example of a collaborative project in which they have participated 5 partners, 5 other national entities, 3 external experts, 51 experts in a very detailed survey, and 20 participants in a workshop. So thank you very much to all of them. And well, let me to show with a video what SAWYER is and how we have done it. So I would like to ask my colleagues to show the next video regarding the SAWYER project methodology and outcomes. So thank you very much for your attention. I will follow the chat on the YouTube channel, so please feel free to ask any questions, and we will try to answer you during the last part of this conference. So thank you very much.
The twin transition, green and digital, will have a huge impact on the EU furniture sector during next year and decades. The new European Industrial Strategy, the European Green Deal and the new Circular Economy Action Plan will play an important role in the transformation of the whole EU industry, including the furniture one. In the SAWYER project, we analyze how the twin transition is going to change the jobs of the furniture manufacturing sector in the future. SAWYER built up its analysis on the outcomes of the Digital project, which analyzed the impact of the digital transformation on the furniture industry and in the sector key occupational profiles. We integrated digital results with the expected impacts of the sector transition toward a more circular economy. The final result is a detailed analysis of the foreseen changes in 11 key occupational profiles of the sector due to the twin transition in 2030. The SAWYER project has been implemented by 5 partners of the European Social Dialogue for the furniture sector, with the collaboration of 5 other national entities and with the participation of more than 60 sectoral and thematic experts. These are the steps we followed in the project. We have identified and analyzed the main legislative and voluntary instruments and other policies and strategies that will directly impact the circular transition of the sector. With the collaboration of 51 experts, we predicted how all these instruments will evolve and impact the sector. We have finally agreed on defining how we believe the sector will be in 2030 due to its circular transition. We analyze in detail how the twin transition will change the tasks currently performed by the 11 most characteristic occupational profiles in the sector. Then we predicted and analyzed which changes will occur in these occupational profiles from an occupational health and safety perspective. We identified which risks will remain unchanging and which will emerge, increase, decrease or disappear. Finally, we analyzed the consequences of all these changes from the perspective of the new knowledge, skills and competences that these professional profiles will need in that future scenario. The project also identifies the main initiatives that are being deployed across Europe to promote this transition toward a more circular economy. At the end, the project includes a series of conclusions and recommendations. These are specifically addressed to our legislators, vet regulators and providers of the different member states. All these results are included in a report available in 10 languages and downloadable from SAWYER website. We are confident that these project's results will contribute to the social dialogue at all levels within the furniture sector, facilitate its twin transition, improve the employability and safety of workers, and increase the competitiveness and circularity of our companies.
So thanks, Julio, for your interesting presentation. Indeed, very, very interesting also to see how the sector will evolve in the future. But it's clear that we will have to wait to see how the content of the Sustainable Product Initiative will be, and so understand how it will impact both the evolution of the sector companies and also the products of the sector and all the business models and all the impact that you have just mentioned. Now we will do a break, coffee break, a virtual coffee break, and we will be back at 11:10. So we will see you in a few minutes. Thanks. Hello, welcome back to the SAWYER final conference. Before going on with the conference, I would like to remember that you can write your comments or questions on the conference YouTube chat, and that you need to be registered to do so. We will have a short section in the second part of the conference when our experts will comment on them. And now we have the part related to the presentation of the SAWYER results. And I would like to give the floor to Juan Carlos Alonso, our expert in circular economy, who provided a key contribution on the whole research project. And of course, we want to thank him for the work done. He's going to present a general vision on how the twin transition will affect the furniture sector jobs. Please, Juan Carlos, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thanks, Max, for the introduction. And also, I would like to thank the CENFIM and the other partners for the opportunity to present to you the methodology followed by the SAWYER project in order to define the changes in the furniture jobs related to the circular economy transition. Just, I would like to show to you the different steps that we have followed in order to develop the project, and I will try to explain to you the activities developed inside the blue box, from the identification of the different legislative instruments to the final task change forecast related with the circular economy transition. The first step was to define the identification of the instruments that could promote the circular economy transitions. In order to do that, we have identified 21 instruments, and we have classified them in 3 main categories: the legislative instruments, voluntary instruments, and other policies and strategies. And you could see here the list. For example, for the legislative instruments, we are considering, for example, the circular economic packages, but also some legislation related to the use of hazardous substance, the eco-design directive, the extended producer responsibility, etc. Associated to the voluntary instrument, we have analyzed the green public procurement, the eco-design methodology, eco-labels, etc. And also related with policy and strategies, we have identified, for example, the cascaded use of wood, bioeconomy, and others. So we have identified these 21 instruments that could promote the circular economy. And then the next step is to analyze the state of the art of these instruments at different levels, at European level, and also in 7 specific European countries, in this case, Spain, Italy, France, the Netherlands, Romania, Bulgaria, and Sweden. And in this case, we have developed complete reports that you could download from the project website. And also we have developed a table that tries to summarize all these reports in a specific table. And we have adapted this table because during the development of the project, it was published the circular economy, the new circular economy action plan, and also was published the Green Deal. So we have tried to update this information with this summary table. And I would like to show to you an example of this table. And in this case, it's just a summarizing to try to summarize in a table all the content of the complete reports. And just for a specific instrument, in this case, the extended product responsibility instrument. And you can see here the content. First, a small description of the instrument, and then the analysis of the level of deployment of this instrument at European level, and then more focused on the furniture sector, the situation and the impact of this instrument at European level and also to the Spanish level, in this case in the country in Spain. You could see here some figures, and this curve represents the level of deployment from 0 to 5, just to rank more or less this level of deployment. And this could be a good example of this different level of deployment, because if we consider the deployment of this instrument at European level, it is well deployed for other products, for example, the waste from electric and electronic products, battery, on end-of-life vehicles. But when we look to the furniture sector, when we make the assessment, only France has an implemented scheme for extended product responsibility, and during this time, Also, the Commission will analyze the increase of these schemes for other products. And when we move to the specific analysis for one specific country, in this case, the case of Spain, only voluntary actions were developed or were implemented, done by municipalities or NGOs. So you could find in the final report the analysis, this kind of analysis for all the instruments, for the 21 instruments that we have considered. Once we know the state of the art of the different instruments, the next step is to forecast the evolution of these instruments focused on the furniture sector. In order to do that, we have defined 49 forecasted evolutions by 2030 for these different instruments. And then we have evaluated their level of probability and impact through an online survey for 50 European professionals for 15 European countries. This survey was a detailed questionnaire trying to analyze this probability and this impact, and also to analyze if this forecasted evolution, this proposed forecasted evolution has sense and their possible status by 2030. Once this forecast scenario, this survey results were analyzed and compiled, we have made a workshop in Brussels with the involvement of 20 professionals coming from 9 European countries, just to fine-tune the results and to have a clear picture of this forecasted evolution. So this analysis allows us to arrive to a, let me say, common view about which forecasted evolutions are more probable, or could have a higher impact, and we have located these forecasted evolutions in this kind of diagram, and also we have prioritized them associated with their importance, and we have made a complete list for the 49 evolutions. And we have calculated their importance multiplying their probability by their impact, considering that the scale for the probability from 1 to 100 and the scale for the impact from 1 to 10. So this allows us to prioritize the different forecasting evolution. For example, in this case, the most relevant are associated to the co-design initiative, and so how the future design of the furniture will be, considering that it is needed to reduce their impact using recycled materials or reducing the content of hazardous substance, but also considering design aspect to promote the future or disassembly or repair or remanufacturing, etc. So in the report you could find a complete list of this analysis and a prioritized list of these evolutions according to their importance. Then, well, we have a complete view of this future scenario by 2030. The next step was to define this scenario, this forecasting scenario for the furniture sector. And we have tried to summarize this vision in this short statement that tried to include all this previous work in a short sentence, considering, for example, that the future scenario will be, as we commented, a digitalized scenario with the development of products with low impact and with using more efficient manufacturing processes. And also it is considered the role of the customers that will require more detailed information about the environmental profile of the product, and also the need of the action from the authorities in order to boosting the sustainable end-of-life scenario to promote the green public and private procurement, or also to promote material efficiency policies. In the final report, you could see a complete description of which aspect we are considered and what we understand by, let me say, consensus design or material efficiency policies. So as a summary for this step, we have analyzed it, we have made this forecasting scenario, but it is not enough in order to analyze the effect on the specific tasks or the different occupational profiles. So we need an additional industrial perspective and business perspective in order to make this analysis. And in order to not to reinvent the wheel, we have taken advantage of the Resolve framework developed by the McKinsey Center and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation that try to identify, in this case, levers that will promote the circular economy in the industry. This Resolve framework include levers for regenerate, share, optimize, loop, virtualize, and exchange. The job done in the SAWYER project was to adapt these levers for the furniture sector, and then make an assessment of the impact of the previous identified instruments to these levers, and then finally the effect of these levers to the tasks of the different occupational profiles. So we have tried to include this framework in the project, and this is in a short view the resource levers considered from, for example, to move to renewable energy, to renewable materials, etc., to prolong the product lifetime through maintenance or through other activities, also to optimize the efficiency of the products and also the efficiency of the processes, or to consider the remanufacturing or the reuse or the recycling of the materials, the virtualization of the product, or even of the virtualization of the services, and finally the use of new technologies, etc. Then the next step was to identify, to foresee the impact of the instruments on these resolve levers. And in order to do that, we have developed a matrix including all the instruments and all the levers, and we have scored the impact from 0 to 5, considering the possible impact of this lever by 2030 to the furniture manufacturing. This score allowed us to prioritize from one side the resource levers, considering which could be more relevant for the sector, and we have defined a list starting by the recycling of materials, the move to renewable materials to promote the cascade use of woods, etc. But also it allowed to us to identify which instruments could have a higher effect on these levers, for example, the circular economy, of the standard product responsibility, or even the green public procurement. So in this case, we have a clear picture from both sides, which are the more relevant levers, but also which are the more impacting instruments. With all this information, we are able then to move and then make the analysis of how these levers will affect the different occupational profiles. And you could see here the list of the 11 key occupational profiles considered in the study. And then the occupational profile assessment that we could see summarized in this chart. You could see in the left side the current profile description and task. In the middle, the resolve levers, and we have marked with a dot which lever has an impact on the specific task. And then on the right side, the new on the forecasted profile description and task, considering this twin transition. Marked in green, the circular economy changes, and in blue, the changes associated to the digitalization transition, result of the digital food project. If we take an example, in this case, the cabinet maker and related workers, you could see here the description of the occupational profile, the current profile, and then the new or the forecasted description considering the digitalization and the circular economy transition. And you could see here, for example, that when you are talking about digitalization, we are talking about the use of new tools. But when we are talking about the circular economy transition, we are talking about new points, for example, the life cycle thinking related to this, to the future dismantling of the products, or the consideration of the environmental impact of the manufacturing processes or the product. And if we move to one specific task, in this case the first task, we could see also the changes associated to that, and the new tasks associated to this, For example, in this case, the optimization of the use of the resources, or the going to a more efficient operating systems, etc. This analysis also allowed to us to identify new tasks associated to the circular economy transition. For example, in this case, the need to the use of the disassembly activities in order to recover different materials, or new tasks associated to the maintenance, reparation, or remanufacturing of the furniture when they arrive to the end of life. Well, all this analysis allowed us, if we repeat these examples for the 11 occupational profiles and for all the tasks, we make a clear picture about which changes will affect to the different occupational profiles due to this digital transition and due to this circular economy transition. And this will be the basis for the next steps. That means this task changes forecast will be used for the next step, that is the revisit occupational health and safety risk and the revisit of knowledge, skills, and competence that will be explained by my colleagues in the following presentation. This is all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. And I will pass the floor to Max.
Thank you, Juan Carlos, for your presentation, and again for the relevant contribution that you have provided along the whole project. Thanks. And now is the turn of Ellen Schmidt-Felten, our expert in occupational health and safety, and that implemented all the analysis related to the changes of hazard and risk. Thanks, Ellen, also for your contribution. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, and good morning to all attendees. So I will now present you the report about the analysis of the OSH risks and also occupational safety and health risks and the possible changes due to twin transition. So I took over but now it should. Next slide. So in the woodworking furniture industry, the work can be very dangerous for workers. So using woodworking machines and tools, handling heavy materials, exposure to dust, noise, and chemicals, that are all harmful effects that can happen at any time. And these effects can affect the health of workers. So, for example, they can suffer skin and respiratory diseases, or also the machines can cause injuries, such loss of fingers and other really severe injuries. So the transformation towards the circular economy will lead also to changes in the working conditions. New types of workplaces, new processes, new technologies will emerge, and also new materials will have to be developed. And these points can affect the safety and health of workers. They are exposed then to traditional hazards in the furniture industry, but may also be exposed to new work-related health and safety hazards. And to ensure workers' health and safety, it is really necessary to identify and understand the hazards and to implement reasonable prevention measures to reduce or remove the hazards, and thus also to improve workers' health and safety. In this project, we looked at the common hazards of the furniture industry and analyzed how hazards and risk may change due to digitization and circular economy, and if hazards will disappear or maybe new hazards will emerge. So the general risk factors we looked at were the mechanical hazards, ergonomic hazards, also physical workload, electrical hazards, hazards due to physical effects, something like noise and vibration, fire and explosion hazards, work environmental hazards, climate, for example, hazardous substances, biological agents, and also psychosocial hazards, so mental workload. I will show you now what we did. So we looked at the risk factors in detail in the furniture industry. So what you will see in this table is the hazards and the risks related to the changes. Also, like also in the presentation before, you will see in blue the risks from the digitization, and in green from the circular economy. So I will only pick up some of the points we had analyzed. For example, if you look at the mechanical hazards, so you will have, for example, if you use robots or digital equipment, it can be that the workers will be removed from dangerous environments, from dangerous tasks. So this hazard may be reduced, but on the other way, you will have new hazards because of uncontrolled moving robots, for example. So here you have another example for laser light. Laser light will be a new risk, for example, because it's not a traditional hazard in furniture industry. Due to the new development, this is a hazard that will be a new one. I don't know why it's a little bit slowly with this. So okay. So here another example is the flammable substances, also fire and explosion hazards. So you can maybe this can increase because of recycling of wood products. This is still something that will be done mainly with workers by hand. So you will have wood dust and fine particles during the crushing. This can increase the risk of explosion, but on the other hand, it may also decrease because you will use less hazardous substances, less solvents, and so this can be also reduced. Here we have also some examples from dangerous substances. You will have new materials and recycled materials, and can be new hazards because you don't know the risk in using new, for example, nanomaterials. You will have some unknown hazards in this product. And recycled materials that you don't know. We have lack of information on chemicals that may be in this recycled materials from recycling from one to another time. So you don't know the load of chemicals in these recycled materials maybe. We looked also on the psychosocial hazards. One example here is the increased demands on flexibility. So to work from everywhere with mobile devices, I think at risk of being permanent available outside of working hours. I think in the times now with the coronavirus, we all experienced things like this with home working, also working without colleagues and only to be isolated. In this part is only working with robots will also expose workers to psychosocial hazards. So to get a complete picture of the furniture industry, we analyzed the different occupational profiles. Juan Carlos presented them already in his presentation. So we looked at, for example, the cabinet makers, and we looked at the hazards on nowadays current profiles, and also on the hazards the changes in the tasks for digitization and also circular economy. So what you can see in this presentation and in our analysis, you will see that we have we looked at all the hazards and analyzed if we have changes or not. And you will see in this table that no changes is marked in gray. Reduced due to circular economy are green points. New increased or increased due to a circular economy is red, and reduced to digitization is in blue, marked in blue, and new or increased due to digitization is marked in yellow. So you will find this for all the occupational profiles, and then also for the specific tasks in this profiles. In addition to this table, we described also the hazards as well as the risks and effects in detail for each of the occupational profiles. So in this table, you will find this in detail for the cabinet makers, and also here you will find in blue the changes due to digitization, and in green due to circular economy. And now I will show you some of our conclusions. What we could see is that many of the risks could be reduced, but also could be increased depending on the design of the work environment, of the machinery, or also of the organization of the work. So prevention of such risks may also be ensured by early planning and implementation of health and safety measures and controlling risks at the source. So for digitization, we have, for example, if you use robots for some work, for dangerous work or heavy work, so this might lighten the work and that is physically demanding or monotonous for the workers. It can also remove workers from hazardous environments. It can, for example, also indicate whether a machine needs maintenance, and thus also remove workers from hazardous tasks. But on the other way, psychosocial risks can be there because of increasing workloads or task complexity, excessive work hours, and also what I already mentioned, constant reachability and isolation. And also the lack of exercise and always sitting in front of an electronic device, also inactivity. This may also be a risk for workers. For circular economy, as I already mentioned, also recycling, lack of information on chemicals in recycled products will be expose workers to risks. But on the other hand, green chemistry, less hazardous substances can also decrease the risk for workers. Dismantling and repair can increase mechanical and ergonomic risks, but also, for example, dust exposure. But on the other hand, if you include eco-design, OSH to eco-design, you can also reduce ergonomic risks. For example, you have maybe a tool that is not with less noise, so you will expose the workers to less noise. So what we could see is also that that it is really very important to include or to integrate OSH management into, to include OSH to the management of the production and the work, and also to include it to the quality management system. And if you integrate OSH from the very beginning, then Twin Transition offers a chance to sustainable growth, health and safety of workers, while saving also the environment and its natural resources. So, however, the integration of occupational safety and health from the very beginning, so it's really necessary to think about OSH during the design of production processes in accordance with sustainability and green principles. The furniture industry can be truly sustainable, only truly sustainable, when ensuring the safety and health and welfare of its most important resource, and that are the workers. So it's really good that in this project you look also on OSH, because this is something that we have to look at, otherwise we will have problems also with the twin transition of workers. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Ellen, for your interesting presentation and for explaining us that the twin transition at the end we will offer some opportunities, new opportunities, but also some new challenges for securing the safety of our workers. Thanks again also for the contribution to the project. Thanks. And now I'm glad to give the floor to Jeroen Doom, our expert in the furniture sector, but especially in the furniture sector vet provision. Thanks to him as well for all the contribution given along the whole process of the project implementation. And he's going to present the changes related to knowledge, skills, and competencies needs due to the twin transition. Please, Jeroen, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, and thanks for this opportunity. I'm Jeroen Doom, Managing Director of Woodwise, and we are the Belgian sectorial organization for skills development in the wood and furniture sector. As mentioned by the speakers before, in this SAWYER project, we focused on the changes due to the transition of the furniture sector towards circular economy and its impact on the jobs and tasks with a horizon of 2030. We also took into account the digital transformation of the furniture sector, as described in the DigitFur report, where the horizon was 2025. In DigitFur, we stated that robots and cobots will become common goods and that the digitalization will have a big impact on our furniture sector. In this SAWYER study, We also see an important impact on the furniture sector of the transition towards circular economy. In the next slides, we will explain what this means exactly for the skills, knowledge, and competences for our current and future co-workers. To define these changes, we use the same methodology as in the DigitFur project. As Mr. Alonso explained, we analyzed the 11 chosen ESCO profiles related to the wood furniture sector, and we looked which changes we'll expect in the tasks based upon the possible impact of the resolve levers. Then we reformulated the tasks of these 11 profiles with the integration of the expected changes due to the twin transition. The second phase consisted of analyzing the essential skills and competences and the essential knowledge as described in the ESCO profiles. We looked at the possible changes that we may expect due to the twin transition. And to do this in an objective way, we took the resolve levers as a starting point, and we examined which of these will have the most impact as possible main causes of these expected changes. We did not only look at the expected changes of these essential skills and competences, we also defined some new essential skills and competences as essential new hard skills. And we added and analyzed some newly defined generic green skills, knowledge and competences, as these will certainly have an impact on the skills demand for the 11 chosen profiles. I just wanted to show you this picture to illustrate that the circular economy isn't anymore something for small companies or for special niche markets, but that also the big furniture giants are welcoming this circular idea. This first IKEA circular hub in Belgium opened last week in Mons. Here is one example of the study we wanted to show you with the results of this forecast on new needs and skills, knowledge and competences. We focused only on the essential skills, knowledge and competences, as taking into account also all the optional ones was quite impossible and should have led us too far. In these tables, on the left column, you will find the list of the current and new essential skills, knowledge and competence needs, including the generic green ones. If we look more in detail in this table, we can see the changes on different levels. The second column will tell you for each profile if the mentioned skills and competences will need a different approach and does need to be updated. Then we marked it with yes, it has changed. If the skills demand remains unchanged, we mark these with yes, it stays as it is, or if they will disappear, we mark it with no. The new ones are indicated as new, and when the defined skills and competences are not applicable for this specific profile, we mark these with non-applicable. For instance, these marketing skills are not applicable for the cabinet makers. In the last columns on the right, which number and content differs for each profile, we identified the reasons of the change for each of the skills, knowledge and competences. The green dots indicate that the changes are due to the sector circular economy transition, and in blue, where it is due to the sector digitalization. And this analysis, we did it for the 11 selected profiles. The earlier mentioned new essential technical or hard skills are especially important for the more practical profiles within the wood furniture sector. They concern the specific skills regarding disassembly, regarding examination of quality and possible further use, or regarding reparation. And these new specific technical green skill sets should be seen as a topping up as extras on the existing hard skills. Generic green skills are necessary to follow the social, economic, and environmental developments. When implemented, we can make a smooth transition or transformation towards a sustainable wood furniture sector. Therefore, it is important to look at these as a skills mindset and to contextualize these skills within the perspective of sustainable and circular economy. Based upon the research of Dr. Pavlova on skills development for a green future, we found 4 categories of generic green skills. The first one concerns cognitive competencies such as environmental awareness and a willingness to learn about sustainable development, systems and risk analysis skills to assess, interpret, and understand both the need for change and the measures required, and innovation skills to identify opportunities and to create new strategies to respond to the green challenges. In the second category of interpersonal competencies, we can find the coordination, management, and business skills, communication and negotiation skills, also marketing skills to promote greener products and green services, but also strategic and leadership skills to enable policymakers and business executives to set the right incentives and to create the conditions enabling cleaner production, cleaner transport, green procurement, etc., and to promote circular economy in general. Consulting skills are required to advise consumers about green solutions and to spread the use of green technologies and circular economy strategies. And finally, in this interpersonal competences, we see networking, IT and language skills to enable performance in global markets and in the product value chain. In the third category, the one of intrapersonal competencies, we see the adaptability and transferability skills that help workers to learn and to apply new technologies and processes that are required in their greening jobs. A second intrapersonal competency is the skill of entrepreneurship to see and capture opportunities presented by the transition towards a circular economy. And the fourth and last category concerns technological competences related to circular economy. We see the waste, energy and water quantification and monitoring to follow the evolution of circular economy KPIs. We see material use and impact quantification and monitoring, for instance, in green procurement and selection. And as a last generic green skill, we see the material use and impact minimization, considering the complete life cycle of the material. These 14 generic green skills, divided into 4 categories, are required for every occupation, regardless of its skills level. They enhance the core values and skills needed for the transition towards a more sustainable and greener wood furniture sector. To conclude, I just want to mention some observations we made based upon our skills development research. The demanded qualification level will be higher and more specialized. We see no increased need for new hard skills, except of some topping up skills related to the circular economy. And the demanded digital and green skills are so-called soft skills or people skills. And these need a complete integration in all skills, knowledge, and competence levels. The cognitive, social, and behavioral skills will become priority. It's all about the mindset. And each and every one will have his or her own responsibility to learn and to self-improve. Unfortunately, we don't have the time here to go into the formulated recommendations for vocational education and training regarding the twin transition. But here you can already see some of them. I would like to mention hybrid learning environments. Work-based learning will become important, but also that the curricula needs to be adaptive and evolving, and that they have to adapt to new insights. All of these recommendations you find in detail and with a detailed explanation in the final report. And this brings me to my final statement, this quote of Brian Herbert. We will need to adapt a learning culture. Otherwise, we will not be able to cope with the twin transition. So start learning now and never stop. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeroen, for this nice presentation and for the interesting inputs that you have provided us. And again, also for the work done on the whole project. Now, I'm going to shortly present some recommendation that we have identified for vet regulators and providers, legislator, and finally companies. Indeed, these recommendations are based on the outcomes that our three experts have already summarized, have already presented. So I'm just going to start. So let's try to understand which is the aim of this presentation. First of all, provide a few hints to sector stakeholders on how they should try to deal and to face the sector twin transition. Specifically, the legislators or policy makers, then entrepreneurs and companies, and vet providers and regulatory entities. But before doing this, we think that is important to when thinking about recommendation, we need to look at the sector overall framework and its forecasted evolution, previously presented by Juan Carlos. But here I just want to mention a few things that is important to keep in mind. We will have a sector with new kind of products. These will be more digitalized, interconnected, and probably more circular. These products will be reused, remanufactured, recycled, and also in some cases upcycled. All of this will happen in new types of workplaces. These products will be produced using new materials, new technologies, and also through different manufacturing processes. Another important aspect is that these products will be offered also through new business models, not only as products, but probably also as services. But we need to look also to the sector needs. So companies and workers will need new knowledge, skills, and competencies, as already mentioned by Jeroen. But also, as mentioned before, Ellen, we will have to look at the new or changed occupational hazard and risk in order to ensure that workers' health and safety is guaranteed. Here, I think it's important to highlight that in this context, prepared workers and professionals are key for the competitiveness and for the success of our companies. Then we need also a clear, effective, and sustainable legal framework and rules. So companies will need to take decisions and define their new strategies based on this new legal framework and rules. But it's important also to communicate better their environmental achievement, especially if they want to properly achieve and reach the markets and the customers. But in order to cover all these needs, a strong and continuous collaboration is required among all sector stakeholders. But we consider that a key role for this success is played by two main actors: policymakers and legislators on one side, and then on the other side, the EU VET system, meaning regulatory entities and providers. But let's start with the recommendation for the EU VET system. When redesigning our educational policies and program, it will be key to strengthen the cooperation among all stakeholders, especially with sector industries, because companies will demand higher and more specialized qualification levels, and it will be important to understand which will be the most required. Then it's important to keep sight on the long term and try to anticipate and provide skills based on new specific competencies and skills needs coming from the industry, but also based on existing and forecasted gaps. And then also we need to integrate new skill sets for green and digital world in the education system, meaning that it would be great to include already at an early stage these kind of skills, for instance, in the primary education, and then further develop them in the secondary education and the following ones. But then also we need to support the workforce in developing a new mindset of continuous learning. It has to be clear to each worker, to each individual, each professional, that he or her will become responsible for their own future skills and their skills development. But of course, we need also to look at the increasing importance of demand-driven system as apprenticeships, dual learning, or workplace-based learning in both VET systems, in initial and the continuous one. We want to put here also some practical recommendation, because sometimes it's difficult to translate the strategical to practical level. So we need to look at new and emerging digital learning methods, for instance, the MOOC. For sure, work-based training should be provided in collaboration with current specialized workforce. We should try also to increase the green training programs, courses, and good practices through personalized training paths and modular courses, or a combination of them. Then there is a point about the skills alliances that VET regulatory entities and provider should join in collaboration with other sector stakeholders to anticipate future skills needs. It's important also to join research on the recognition of those skills developed outside of the normal learning paths and of the normal curriculum, especially because many times we will see that only after a few years away from the schools or from the courses, the knowledge and the skills could become somehow obsolete. And that is a risk, of course, for workers. They also should try to contribute to create a learning culture within the companies, where the highly educated workforce or the more experienced workforce become responsible to train the lower skilled force. Then we pass to the recommendation for policy makers. First, we think that they should try to support and facilitate the social dialogue at all levels to strengthen and to further develop collaboration among all key stakeholders. We think that they should try also to produce harmonized rules at international, EU, and national level, rules that should be able to facilitate the transition of companies toward a twin transition. But they should try to do it without putting at risk company efficiency and competitiveness, and to ensure that the different EU initiatives and legislations are implemented and adopted by member states in a consistent way in order to avoid fragmentation among the different legislation in the different countries. Indeed, I think that the sector needs also simple and smart circular economy rules to ensure a smooth implementation of the EU initiatives, able to combine the protection of the workers from a health and safety point of view, but also to secure the efficiency and competitiveness of the industry. They should also try to facilitate the harmonized information that harmonized information are provided to consumers and businesses. And to this respect, the EU Sustainable Product Initiative presented previously by Julio will play a relevant role. Finally, but not least, I mean, it's important that they should try to support the transformation of the EU VAT system and the EU companies, helping them to continuously update and upskill workers according to sector needs. Just a few practical examples. Facilitate and promote eco-design or environmental conscious design based on low impact and traceable raw materials and sustainable manufacturing processes. Also promote better usage and recovery scenarios for materials and products, supporting disassembling, reusing, remanufacturing, recycling, and upcycling. Also expanding the use of public and private green procurement schemes. And finally, also provide specific financial support to companies and VAT provisions. Now we can pass to recommendation for the companies that should look at the twin transition from two different perspectives. On one side, the challenges and threats to be tackled and overcome, and on the other, the opportunities to be exploited, but also communicated to the public, to the possible customers. So from a strategical point of view, we think that they should look at the new emerging legislation affecting both their products, but also their value chain, but also the possibilities offered by the voluntary instruments. They should look also at the key enabling technologies and the other ones that will emerge in the future, looking for advantages for their processes, for all their processes, I would say, starting from ideation, prototyping, supply chain, and manufacturing, and so on. They should look also at the emerging market demands. In relation to this, it's important that they look at the new business models for their products, such as servitization, for instance, but also in general to the different opportunities that can emerge from there. From a practical perspective, companies should look at the needed knowledge, skills, and competencies to ensure that the company can properly deal with the new challenges and exploit emerging opportunities. In this case, we refer both to internal human resources and external human resources, because probably the companies in some cases will require the support of external professionals with very specific competencies. Then they should look also to ensure the workers' health and safety, look at the new or changing risk in the new context. They should try also to develop collaboration in the framework of the share economy or the corporate social responsibility with customers, but also with complementary companies and other entities. And for instance, we think about research centers, governmental agencies, or business facilitators. But it's important also, again, that they communicate their environmental achievement and exploit opportunities for funding and support. Because, I mean, we have to be clear in mind that the process, especially for SMEs, will require probably a lot of resources. And too many times, especially SMEs, lack these financial resources for technological upgrade. So just to conclude, in this framework, the implementation of all these recommendations should facilitate the readiness of the different stakeholders of the EU furniture sector on one side to tackle the challenges posed by the twin transition, challenges and threats. And on the other side, to properly exploit the opportunities of the twin transition. And if this will be done, it will allow to secure the strengthening of the EU furniture industry and possibly conserve and increase the company competitiveness at world level. But if we look also to the workers, all these actions should provide sector workers with sustainable, desirable, and safe jobs, not only at this moment, but on the long term. Okay, this is all in relation to the recommendation. Now we will have I will give the floor, let's say, to our three external experts, if they want to comment or to do some remarks based on the questions or the comments received on the chats, or if they want to do anything else to what has been said until now during the conference.
Do you want, I could start myself? Just a few remarks about the report on the state of the art. Just to mention that the report was published in November 2019. So of course, all these initiatives that Julio commented at the beginning of the session were not included here in this report. And we have tried to update the report with the table of what we the summary table, what we included the new the European Green Deal and also the new action plan. So just to take into account, if you download the report from the project website, we will find this limitation. And looking to the questions, perhaps I could answer one of them, related to see if the analysis also consider the impact of the twin transition on the development of new business models and the related skills. The answer is yes. We have considered these new business models in the forecast evolution scenarios, considering this servitization and similar, and also the resolve levers consider also these points. So we have made this analysis, and when we go to the changes in the different occupational tasks, we focus it mainly in the opportunities or new business models related to repairability and remanufacturing and so on. And so they were detected new tasks also related with these new business models.
May I continue if you agree? So I would like to answer partially a question and also to give the floor to Jerome and Helen. I will try to answer partially the question of Chiara. Our colleague Chiara, is asking if, according to our experience, the COVID-19 pandemic is boosting the twin transition, or it will slow down the process already in progress due to the less resources available for the innovation. So Chiara is asking about what are the effects that we see due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think I would like to answer it from the level of deployment of legislation. As you have seen at the beginning of my presentation, you can see that the Green Deal and the related legislation were very ambitious, okay? And it was a pity that when the deployment of this legislation started, we faced the COVID situation. So till now, the Green Deal deployment legislation, in my opinion, is not very affected. So the European Commission is still working in this initial phase of preparing legislation, but till now we have not seen any big delay in this deployment. But we are just at the beginning of this deployment stage. So during the next months, we are going to see really the effects of the COVID. And we will see if delays are big or if they are strictly following the initial plan. But in any case, we also should be realistic. So the priority now has been moved to another position. So probably the speed in this deployment can be less. But also in our favor, we can see that when the European Commission is trying to help companies in facing the pandemic and this crisis situation, they are still thinking in digitalizing and in circular economy. So we will see if at the end the COVID is probably also going to reinforce the deployment of this legislation. But we will see. We will see till now, in summary, the plan of the European Commission in deploying this legislation, we cannot see any big affectation, but we have to wait and see. And I would like to give the word to Jerome and to Helen to know when they are working in companies, what are they seeing? So companies are, how are they facing this COVID situation? They are investing more in digitalizing their businesses or in doing further steps in circular economy, or they are just waiting a bit. So I would like to first to give the word to Helen and then to Jerome.
Okay, thank you. So regarding the COVID-19 pandemic situation, so in Germany, we have a lot of regulations also looking at the occupational safety and health. So this is something that that got through this pandemic situation a very is more important sometimes for the companies. And what we see also is, yes, we have a great, a lot of people now are working from home. So we have many new digital places, not new digital platforms on which we are now communicating. So I think this will help to go forward in this with digitization. Yes, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, for our point of view in the Belgian situation, we also see that in our companies, when it's possible to work from home, we have to work from home. So digitalization has increased since the COVID-19 pandemic. We see more distance workers from distance, though, so not in the company itself, but everything that can be done from home is done and has to be done from home. So the COVID-19 pandemic is not a trigger, but has accelerated this digitalization in our companies. On the circular economy side, we see that in some subsectors in furniture, this becomes more important because people stay more at home. They want that what they do, what they buy, what they transform in their houses has a positive impact on the environment. So when they have the time, and some companies, they have had in this pandemic some more time just to develop new products or new services and so on. So there we see also the increasing importance of the circular economy. On the other hand, some of the companies are so busy for the moment that this is something that they will cope with after this pandemic. So we have a bit on circular economy side, a bit of both elements in our sector.
I think that also in our chat we have a last question that probably Jerome can also answer it. It's a question from our colleague Manel. Manel is asking if where do you think is the best age or in terms of education for including the circular economy skills? So at professional schools and in universities, or in postgraduate or master's degrees programs. So what do you think, Jerome, is the best or the proper place for including these knowledges?
Yes, we did not have the time to go into detail in this presentation, but in the report we state also that training in circular economy, you have both sides necessary. In fact, a circular economy idea has to be integrated, as Max also mentioned, already from the start, from early age. So circular economy must be integrated in all levels of education. On the other hand, we also have to learn about circular economy, and there we can see it at, let's say, postgraduate level. But as I said, it's not an or, it's an and story. This must be initiated already in the professional and technical schools, and then can be further studied in higher education. So it's in both situations, and not only study on circular economy, but also integrating circular ideas in the whole VET situations.
Okay, just a remark about this, what Jeroen has just said. Indeed, as I said in my presentation, I think that it's very important to have a mindset in relation to mindset change in relation to this knowledge related to circular economy and digitalization. And I just can make an example about my daughter. I mean, they started already through different indeed EU projects to touch the issue of circular economy. And indeed, there are instruments, the children are instruments to transpass, to bring this new mindset or through this new information also to other adult people. And this, if it has an effect on the normal private life, it will be important also for the professional life of all these people. Okay, I think that we can give for concluded this part of comments. I don't know if you want to add something else. No? Okay. So I'm going to share the screen. And now we can move to a new part, an interactive section, where two of our partners, Rolf Gehring from the European Federation of Building and Woodworkers, and Gabriela Kemendi from EFIC, the European Furniture Industry Federation, both key partners of the project, but also of the European Social Dialogue Committee on Furniture, will present some key challenges that the sector will have to face due to its twin transition. And indeed, they will ask about your opinion about these new challenges. The idea indeed is to exploit these inputs coming from you for the further developments of the topics of this project, but also of the work of the committee itself. So how it works, these sections? You will have to assess the voting through or scanning the code, the QR code that you see now on the screen through your mobile, or click on the link that has been posted on the YouTube chat. And you will see another window of the browser with the questions. At the moment, the question is not open yet, but we will open it when the two people will present the topic and the questions. So our colleagues will shortly introduce the topic of the questions, and we will open the voting for around 30 seconds. So you can quickly answer to it, and then we will comment, Rolf and Gabriela will comment on the results. So Ignacy, I don't know if I can start with just a moment. We are waiting to be able to have it online. We will use an instrument called Mentimeter, so you will have different options for the different questions, and then we will see the results instantly, so we can have an idea on how this, on your ideas, on how you see that these challenges or these opportunities will affect the sector.
Just, Max, only to comment and remind that the link is also already available in our chat, and you only have to click on this link. So it will be very easy to follow this session by just clicking this link, and this link will allow you to answer the questions that our speakers are going to introduce and comment.
Yeah, the link is the one with www.menti.com, and so on. That is the link. It looks that we have a technical problem with this. It can happen, but we try to be a little bit patient and check if we can solve it soon.
Yeah, okay, just to take advantage of this time, to remind you, we have already commented on the chat, but just to inform you that the final report, the English version of the final report, is already available in the download section of the project website. And as we commented, this report is going to be available in more languages, But now we are doing the proofreading of the translation of the final report. But before the end of the month, we are also going to upload the other or the final report in the other languages. So if you subscribe on the SAWYER web page, or if you have already registered to this session, we have your contact details. So we are going to inform you in due time when the reports are available. And also, as we commented in the chat, we are also going to upload the material shared today with you. So in this download section, you are going to have more information about how to reach the different final reports and the different material that we have presented today.
Okay, so it looks that now the problem has been fixed, and I would like to give the floor to Rolf in order to comment the first question.
Yes, good morning, still good morning, I think, to all of you, and thank you for having the floor briefly at least. My name is Rolf Gehring, working for the European Federation of Building and Woodworkers, and we are one of the social partners on European level. Together with EFIC and UEA, we have, as said in the beginning, work groups on vocational education and training and on occupational safety and health, on occupational safety and health, of course. So we have prepared a few questions which shall support in the end us as social partners on European level to do follow-up activities of this project. It is said in the invitation to today's program that the key aim of the SAWYER project is contributing to the social dialogue within the furniture sector at all levels. So that is the main aim or key aim on one level. Another level, of course, is to gain expertise in the questions we discussed earlier this morning. Talking about social dialogue, we can say social dialogue is acting in a framework. The framework is set by legislators on European national level and so on. And that is exactly what we dealt with in the project. So that was a starting point. But the second framework, I would say, for all the changes is what social partners do on the various levels. We need to implement new technology. We need to implement training. We need to improve health and safety. The question here is, what do you think on which level social dialogue in these processes is most important?
Now you can start to vote.
So I can see on the slide that we have quite a hierarchy. So people voted. I cannot exactly say how many for the moment, but it looks that national level and sector level is most prominent, then European level, later company level, and the last one is workplace level. There are some changes still, but so we can already maybe take some conclusions. Workplace level is mainly direct participation of workers. That looks relatively clear. Representative of workers you find on company level, European and national level. I feel that national level really plays an important role. I can support this voting because on national level you have influence the social partners have often influence on the system of vocational education and training. They can do agreements on health and safety at the workplace, or they also can do agreements on the implementation of technology. On company level, I think the implementation of new technology and the discussion about the work organization has also a real impact in how we implement or how we manage circular economy, how we manage a greening economy or digitalization on company level. That's quite important from my point of view. If you agree, I would then switch to the next question. And the next question is dealing with occupational safety and health. Ellen gave an overview about the outcome from the research, and I think that is extremely important, and we can learn a lot from this research. Even so, it is sometimes maybe not easy to predict the specific hazards constellation at the workplace. Something may depend on how we implement new technology. Some other hazards may depend on what new ideas the chemical industry is developing, so how we treat material and so on. Ellen was referring to nano particles as a possible hazard. So that is a relatively new, let's say, material, but also technology in a way. And therefore, there are open questions. As social dialogue, we have to deal with other actors who are working on occupational safety and health, institutes, prevention authorities, doctors, and so on. For them, we need to have an idea about how the situation will change. And therefore, we have these questions or options. You can vote on occupational health and safety hazards will decrease, and occupational health and safety will be integral part of EU working culture and education. Here, I already like to make a little comment. I think that is an extremely important thing. And we have on European level, we have a project that is fostering and supporting occupational health and safety training in all pillars of the educational system, starting in kindergarten. And that underlines a bit what Max was saying, his experience from his daughter. So second one, we will witness a change from physical to chemical hazards towards mental hazards due to the technological change especially. And the third answer or third statement, occupational safety and health remains a major concern in all its aspects, physical, chemical, biological, and mental hazards. Most people have voted here for the moment, and that confirms a bit earlier research from the Dublin Foundation, who is all 5 years doing a huge investigation or a huge inquiry under workers, what they struggle with at their workplaces. And over the last 20, 30 years, we have seen that there is progress in many aspects, but specific hazards like noise and especially repetitive hand-arm movements or work postures, uncomfortable work postures, that remains on a very high level. So, and then we have what Ellen called new hazards, more towards psychosocial hazards or risks. And therefore, I also think that as social partners, we should not underestimate that what we call, on the one hand, traditional hazards remain a topic. And again, I come back to this first statement. We need to link it. We need to reach also students. What we know from engineers in many areas is that ergonomics, for example, is very seldom a part of their studies. So there we have to improve that health and safety becomes a more a culture in our societies. And then towards the last questions, we go, the last question, we go, at least the last question from my side, we go to the vocational education and training. So we have prepared a question and 3 statements again. Which of the following statements characterize, in your view, the coming or the needed transition process in the furniture sector in relation to the vocational education and training? One statement says, yes, there will be major changes as described by Jeroen Doom in detail, but we can build on existing professions and learning structures and integrate the new skills and new competences we need into the existing curricula. The second statement says we will face a switch from school and dual learning towards workplace and fractal learning. That's maybe a bit the direction Max has mentioned. So you become responsible for your own learning. So you have to choose. And because the production lines are less structures and homogenized, but more also fractal collaboration of different systems. Therefore, we don't need precisely what you need in 10 years. You have to manage yourself, and therefore we go to a more flexible learning orchestration or composition. And the third statement says we need to move from an occupational professional skills and diploma approach to a more generic competences and social communication skills. That is, I think, also an aspect which was discussed by Jeroen Doom more in detail. So, and on my screen, I can see already a few votings, and it looks that the last statement, which says that the traditional way of learning specific a trade or a specific profession by doing the traditional manual work, learning to work with machinery, to do quality control and so on, that is not sufficient any longer, and therefore we have to focus on what we call more generic competences, the qualification that you can arrange your own learning, and some more aspects. This is of high importance for us as social partners again, because what I think personally is that sorry, there's one person who has not muted, and I can hear the Gabriela, could you mute for a while still? As social partners on European level and on national level, we have an influence, but also social partners on company level will have an extreme influence because they decide about the work division. They decide how they will implement new technologies, digital tools, how they will organize the work in future, and how they organize, how they implement. That exactly has a consequence for the needed skills. So the message here is that going towards, let's say, a more holistic qualification and a comprehensive qualification of people, social partners have a double role. Why they organize the work and they implement technology, and how they describe the curricula and the specific professions. So again, and in a nutshell, I think from this report and from this research and the project, we can learn a lot, and we have some tasks as social partners on European level, but especially then also on national level, on sectorial level, and on company level elsewhere as well. So that's all. Thank you. I hand over back to Max, I think.
Thanks, Rolf, for your contribution, and thanks again also for the contribution that you have given along the project implementation. Always very sharp contribution and inputs. Thanks a lot, Rolf, for this. Now, I would like to give the floor to Gabriella. I thank again her for this session and the contribution. Please, Gabriella, I will pass to your question now.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the speakers so far. I'm Gabriela Kemendi, Secretary General of EFIC. EFIC is the European Furniture Industries Confederation. We currently represent 16 countries and one individual company member, which is IKEA. And at European level, the sector employs about 1 million people in about 120,000 enterprises and generates a turnover of approximately 96 billion euros annually. So we are now reaching the end of the conference, and we see that the results of this project are very valuable for our work for the next years. Also, as Danis Hedling mentioned from the European Commission at the beginning of the conference, the project couldn't have been developed at a more suitable time, with so many initiatives that have been announced under the Green Deal and the Circular Economy Action Plan. So what I can say to you from the perspective of the European furniture industry, so the industry really embraces sustainability and circularity objectives of the EU, and believes that this transition will be an opportunity for the industry. Also, we think that transitioning to a more resource efficient and circular economy will be the main contribution of the industry towards the climate neutrality objectives of the EU. Also, furniture is well suited for a circular economy, and all the different business models that were also mentioned throughout the session today that are based on product reuse, repair, remanufacturing, refurbishment, product as a service are absolutely an opportunity for the furniture industries. So the industry is already adapting, and there are a lot of best practices that already exist. However, we do see that results at large scale will only be available in the medium long term, and that there will be time needed for the industry to adapt to all the circularity rules that will be put in place. So in this context, you see a number of options on the screen for the following question. So in view of all the circularity legislation that is upcoming, what should be the main recommendation to the legislator when developing these? We've already heard from previous speakers on certain recommendations from the furniture industry's perspective, and we would like you to vote on these as well. Perhaps we can already start the voting, and I can already tell you what we think from the furniture industry's perspective about these three options, and then we can see the voting in real time as well. So first of all, developing harmonized circular economy rules at EU level is very, very important. As Max was saying in his intervention, we do think that there has to be harmonized legislation put in place at EU level so that there is no risk to fragment the single market and to put barriers to the free movement of goods within the internal markets. Also, member states have to implement the legislation in a consistent way for the same reason. Related to harmonization as well, it is very important to have common definitions put in place at EU level on all parameters that measure circularity. Why is this important? Because this will provide a common understanding to everyone, to all players involved. And also it will be important to provide harmonized information to consumers at the later stage. Related to harmonization as well, we need a holistic approach across policies, and this is something that we have said many times to the European Commission in a number of position papers. And it is also important to involve standardization bodies who are already working both at European level and international level in CEN and ISO on circular economy rules. And we see that the first option is the preferred one, if I understand correctly. So developing harmonized economy rules at EU level seems to be one of the most important ones. Of course, apart from harmonization, we need to promote the circular logic and to drive circular economy. And the other two options that you see on the screen are also very important for this objective. So we need to, first of all, tackle the linearity of regulations to address, for example, the conflict that we see between resource efficiency and legislation on toxic-free environment, and also a number of limitations in waste legislation. Very important as well, and this was mentioned already by speakers throughout the session, is that the industry cannot make it alone. We can do everything we can up to a certain extent to integrate circularity in processes and in the production. However, we cannot make it alone. Everyone that is involved in the value chain has to collaborate. And the market demand for circular products has to be stimulated. Also from the European legislator side. And in this regard, there is one tool that can drive circularity extensively, and it's green public procurement. So moving now to the second question that we have prepared for you. So you see that the furniture industry believes that circularity is an opportunity. And there are a number of best practices already in the industry. So one of the main steps of this transition will be embracing circular design principles. And we've heard from Julio earlier about the upcoming Sustainable Products Initiative, which will widen the scope of the current Eco-Design Directive to cover non-energy related products. So as you can imagine, this will have quite a large impact on how furniture will be produced in the future. And we think that given the large range of products that fall under the category of furniture and the large array of materials that are used in the production, this area has to be taken with care, and the complexity of furniture has to be addressed. So you have a couple of options on the screen on what you think the benefits are of a more circular design. And I see that the first option so far seems to be that more circular design enables reuse, repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing, and recycling. That is definitely right. Also, we have heard earlier that 80% of the environmental impact of a product depends on its design. So it's very important to take into account. Circular design not only increases resource efficiency because you choose the right materials, renewable, recyclable materials and components, but then as well, circular design enables all these circular loops that we see here on the screen. Also important is that this more circular design contributes to limiting the use of hazardous substances in the sector, which of course not only has a benefit from a circular economy perspective, but also it contributes to avoiding risks for workers. And we think that one of these examples are unwanted toxic flame retardants in the furniture sector. And the removal from the production would benefit both the circular economy and reduce danger to workers during production, especially when it comes to upholsterers. Moving now to question number 3, also in view of the time that we have left. So we heard again and again that for a smooth transition to the circular economy, we need collaboration among all partners involved. This, of course, means social partners, policymakers, supplier organizations, academia, experts, consumers. And of course, one of the most important resources of the industry are the workers. And the sector is rather labor intensive, highly labor intensive, employing about 1 million workers in the EU. So in this context, what do you think should be the main responsibilities of social partners at EU level when it comes to the twin transition. So it can be either anticipating the challenges that the transition will bring, providing recommendations to EU policymakers, and making results of activities such as projects as tangible as possible. So you have some time to vote here. Perhaps I can already start by saying that I believe the first option, anticipating challenges that the transition will bring, is very, very important. This should be one of the main goals of social partners, to collaborate in order to identify and anticipate the challenges that this transition will bring, also in terms of changes in occupation, skills, knowledge, and competences, and also to find pathways to address these. Of course, it will be important for social partners to identify potential challenges from an occupational health and safety perspective. And I think these two focus points reflect very well the two working groups that we have established at European level under the sectoral social dialogue for furniture, as we heard from the Commission earlier this morning. And of course, we have the SAWYER project, which is a very practical example of how this sort of joint activity of EU social partners anticipate challenges of upcoming legislation. So one of the most important goals is this, to anticipate the challenges. Then, of course, to communicate to the European institutions the challenges and the opportunities that we see. And there are a number of initiatives, as you know, that we will be able to work jointly on, such as the Circular Economy Action Plan, Green Deal, Industrial Strategy, the Pillar of Social Rights, which was mentioned earlier by Dani, the Pact for Skills, and many others. And I still see that making results of activities as tangible as possible for companies and workers remains the first option on the screen. And I do agree with you. It's very important to have projects developed, such as the SAWYER project, which has not only helped us understand how the jobs and safety of workers will evolve during the coming years, but it also helps prepare companies and workers to face and exploit the upcoming challenges and opportunities. And it will also serve us as social partners at European level to have a stronger basis for discussions and collaborations. So with this, I would like to thank everyone that has been involved in the project, especially to CENFIM for all the work that they have done, to all the experts that have been involved, and of course to the European Commission for the support. Many thanks.
Thanks, Rolf and Gabriella, for your inputs and for the work also done along the whole project. But also thanks to the active participants that have voted to these Mentimeters. Now we are going to the final part of the conference, and I will give the floor to our colleague Julio Rodrigo for the conclusion part of the conference. But before that, I take the opportunity to thank all the participants, the experts and the partners to join this final conference. But also to our technical team that made possible to organize and streaming this conference, Silvia, Uriol, and Ignacy. Just to inform you that later on, this conference video will be available in streaming through the SAWYER website and the project YouTube channel, and to the CENFIM channel as well. Thanks again to all of you. And now I give the floor to Julio.
Thank you, Max. Well, we have reached the end of this conference. So let me try to summarize the main conclusions and challenges in a minute. If we see the next slide, here are my final remarks. So the first conclusion is certainly twin transition is going to change our jobs and activities of the furniture sector. Also, we have agreed that occupational health and safety risk changes will happen and due to this twin transition. And we absolutely must to control and minimize negative ones. We have also seen that new skills needs will emerge. Some of them, as commented by Jerome, technical, and most of them generic and transversal. We also agree that the sector needs harmonized and smarter rules at the European level, but also we need to give also room for those companies that they want to go beyond legislation. Better offer and provision must be adapted to the new digital, green, and soft skills needs. And for companies, what is our message for companies? So companies, it's time to start planning, doing, and communicating your twin transition achievements. Okay, this will be our main remarks. And before closing this conference, let me to inform you of our next station in the European social dialogue. As you know, and as you can see in the slide, first, we have supported our companies to be prepared for digitalization. Now, in this project in SAWYER, we are supporting companies in doing this twin transition. And in a couple of weeks, we are going to start this new project under the European Social Dialogue, in which we are going to help our companies to be more socially responsible and to be more attractive for young workers. Okay, so, well, on behalf of the SAWYER family, thank you very much for your participation in this conference, and we hope to see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.